If you went to college or even just a big meeting anytime before, say, 2010, you probably remember taking notes by hand.
Oh, yeah. The physical notebook.
Exactly. And I had this whole system,
Right.
like my own intricate hieroglyphic language of check marks and asterisks to show what was important.
And it was slow. That was the whole thing. It felt like this necessary inefficiency.
Right.
But then, of course, laptops arrived, and they
Uh,
promised this revolution in how we capture information.
Oh, the logic was airtight, wasn't it?
Completely. I mean, why would you sit there and manually scratch out a summary when you can type, what, 3 or 4 times faster?
You get more notes, they're more legible, it's a way more thorough document. Clinging to paper just seemed old-fashioned.
Luddite, even.
Yeah. But this is the deep dive, and we know that sometimes efficiency, it comes with a hidden cost.
Yeah.
You shared some fascinating research centered on the work of Pam Mueller and Daniel Oppenheimer. And they weren't just asking which method gives you better notes. They asked the real question. Does the speed of typing let you bypass, the necessary cognitive steps? Does it lead to shallower processing even if the notes look great?
That is the absolute core of it. For you, the listener, this is essential knowledge. We're all looking for the best way to actually get information to stick, right, to encode it in memory.
Mm-hmm.
We have to know if this digital habit we've all adopted is actually undermining the whole reason we take notes in the first place.
Uh-huh.
So we're putting these two methods head to head.
Okay, so let's get into their first big experiment. They needed a real-world scenario, not some sterile lab.
Right. So they took college students, had them listen to the same lectures, and the topics were all over the place, from, the Indus civilization to
Social equality in Japan versus Sweden, I think.
exactly complex stuff. And they just assigned them either a notebook or a laptop. And this is key, told them to just use their usual note-taking strategy.
No special instructions.
None. And almost immediately, this crucial difference popped up. The students with laptops did exactly what you'd think. They took pages and pages of notes,
Copious notes.
just a huge amount. In some cases, they caught almost everything the lecturer said. But they were also way more likely to engage in what the researchers called verbatim transcription.
So word for word.
Word for word. They weren't filtering. They were just recording.
The keyboard turns you into a passive recorder. I can see that. You don't have to filter or summarize because your fingers can actually keep up with the speaker.
And that creates this dangerous cognitive illusion. You feel like you're engaged because your fingers are flying, you're busy.
Yeah, you're doing something.
But your brain isn't actually pausing to distill anything. The researchers called it mindless transcription, and they suspected right away that this would cancel out any benefit of having more notes.
It makes sense. You're putting off the real mental work until later. You think, I'll process it when I study. But how did they actually test if this translated to real learning?
Well, they tested them about half an hour after the lecture. No time to review. And the test was specifically designed to separate different kinds of learning.
So they had two types of questions.
Two distinct types. The first was simple factual recall, something like, how many years ago did the Indus civilization exist?
The kind of thing you could just look up in your notes.
Easily.
Right.
The second type was complex conceptual questions, things that require you to synthesize ideas, like how do Japan and Sweden differ in their approaches to social equality?
And this is where the first big red flag for typing showed up.
A huge one. For the simple facts, both groups did about the same. Longhand, laptop, no real difference.
Okay.
But on those complex conceptual ideas, the laptop users performed significantly worse, statistically worse.
Wow. So typing captured the data but not the idea. That is such a vital distinction. If you're trying to really understand a complex topic, the facts are just the building blocks. You need the framework.
Exactly. The longhand note-takers, because they had to slow down, they were forced to create their own summaries, their own hierarchies, in their own words.
Yeah.
They were actively encoding the lecture as it was happening.
Okay, but hold on. That's just for immediate recall. I mean, in the real world, nobody gets a pop quiz 30 minutes after a meeting.
Right.
You take notes so you can study from them later. The argument would be that those huge, detailed, perfectly legible laptop notes would be a massive advantage for an exam a week from now. You've got a full transcript.
And that is precisely the next question they tackled. They knew the immediate test was only half the story, so they set up experiment 2.
A more realistic scenario.
Much more. They gave the students advance notice of an exam, a full week, and let them study their notes however they wanted.
And this is where the results get really, really counterintuitive. What happened?
It was a definitive win for longhand. The students who wrote notes with a pen and then studied them did significantly better on the final exam.
Better than the laptop users.
Better than everyone, including the typists who had effectively a perfect transcript of the lecture to study from. And this wasn't just for one type of question. It was for both factual recall and the higher order conceptual stuff.
Okay, let me just process that. The group with fewer notes, messier notes, and just less raw information. They remembered and understood it better a week later.
That's what the data showed.
That completely flipped what we assume about good preparation.
It absolutely does. It suggests the cognitive effort you put in during the creation of the notes is way more important than the document you end up with. The process itself is the learning.
And they even ran a third test, which I think is the most telling one. They tried to intervene.
Yeah, they thought, okay, if the problem is just this verbatim transcription habit, let's just tell them not to do it.
So they told the laptop users, hey, don't transcribe, paraphrase, put it in your own words.
And it failed completely. They watched them. And despite the direct instruction, the laptop users just defaulted right back to verbatim transcription. The speed and the ease of the keyboard was it was too reflexive.
So it's not just a bad habit you can coach away. There's something inherent to the act of typing that just pushes you toward that shallow processing.
Exactly. It seems to be almost unconscious. When the input is that fast and the output is that frictionless, the brain's filter just kind of shuts down. It treats it like data entry, not like synthesis.
Okay, so the evidence is pretty overwhelming. Longhand leads to better learning. The big question then is why? What's the actual cognitive mechanism at play here?
It all comes down to what the researchers call cognitive effort. Handwriting creates this necessary bottleneck. You physically can't write as fast as someone speaks.
Right.
So your brain is forced to make decisions in real time.
That friction forces you to summarize.
Precisely. You are constantly filtering. You hear a complex idea, and before your hand can even move, your brain has to, interpret it, find the core concept, and then rephrase it concisely in your own words. That effort is the encoding process.
So the inefficiency is actually the point. With typing, the information can almost go straight from your ears to your fingers, bypassing the part of your brain that does the heavy lifting.
You're just delaying the learning. You think, I got it all down, I'll figure it out later. But what the studies show is that later is too late. That initial encoding is foundational.
That makes a lot of cognitive sense, but is there actual neuroscience to back this up? Can we see a difference in the brain?
Oh, absolutely. The research goes way beyond just the psychological tests. Think about the physical complexity of writing. It requires this fine motor coordination between your hand muscles, your eyes, the motor cortex of your brain.
It's not just a repeated finger tap, it's a whole movement.
It's a whole multisensory feedback loop. You're stimulating the motor cortex, guiding the pen, the visual system confirming the shape, the tactile feeling of the pen on the paper. All of that helps the brain create deeper, more robust memory traces.
So the actual drag of the pen is literally creating stronger connections.
It seems so. And typing is, by comparison, a much simpler, more repetitive motor action. It engages less of that neural circuitry. And this connects directly to focus. The sustained effort of writing helps reduce distraction. Your brain doesn't have the spare capacity to wander off and check your email.
I remember seeing that study from the University of Stavanger.
In Norway? Yeah.
They found people remembered new letters, like from a foreign alphabet, better if they learned them by writing them out.
Exactly. The physical movement reinforces the visual recognition. You're cementing the shape into your muscle memory.
And this isn't just old research.
No, not at all. More recent work from NTNU, also in Norway, use EEG to measure brain waves. This is stuff from 2020, even 2024.
And what did they find?
They found that handwriting generates significantly more connections between brain waves related to learning and memory formation than typing does. We can literally see the enhanced brain activity.
So if we pull this all together for someone listening, maybe someone taking notes in a meeting right now, the conclusion seems pretty clear.
It's unassailable, really.
Digital note-taking is less effective for deep learning because it leads to shallower processing. And it's not just about, turning off Twitter. Even without distractions, the keyboard itself pushes you toward that verbatim transcription that hurts real understanding.
And we have to highlight what we call the value of friction. The apparent weakness of longhand getting fewer notes down, having messier pages, is actually its greatest strength for learning.
You're trading quantity for quality.
You're forced to do the high-quality cognitive work needed for true retention. You listen, you understand, you summarize, and then you write. That process secures the memory far better than any perfect Word doc ever could.
The irony is pretty thick, isn't it? The modern efficient method is actually the most passive.
While the old-fashioned, slower method is deeply active and gets you better results in the long run.
So, the next time you're in a critical meeting or a complex seminar, really think about the tool you choose. Note-taking isn't passive recording. It has to be active learning. The pen is mightier than the keyboard.
Not because of what it writes, but because of what it forces your brain to do.
Right.
And that raises a bigger question, something for you to think about. We live in a world where technology is designed to remove friction, to maximize speed, from AI summaries to automated email replies.
Uh,
If the physical act of slowing down, of writing, increases our depth of understanding,
mhm.
where else in our lives might this relentless pursuit of efficiency be costing us genuine, long-term comprehension? What other necessary friction are we trying so hard to engineer away?